1. Setting: high-volume independent tire shop in northern New England, circa 2012. We'll call it 123 Tire. Target: evil general manager, J. Aggrieved parties. Basically everybody that worked there the entire time, but mainly myself and the receptionist, Ruth. Backstory: so Jay had been the GM of 123 Tires since he got the previous GM fired in 2004. He was, and is, a complete narcissist who believed he could do no wrong, and if you didn't agree with him, can't help you. Over the years, Jay had done a number of illegal things. For example, he was always very physical with his employees. One time he was wrestling with another salesman. This was commonplace and unavoidable if you valued your job. And the salesman, Paul, took a bad fall and broke his knee. In order to avoid the ire of the owner, Lou, Jay immediately clocked Paul out and told him to go to the hospital. He also told Paul to use your own insurance and that the company would pay the deductible in order to avoid a messy workers' comp claim. Paul did as he was told and kept his job, but his knee was never the same, and he ended up addicted to opioids thanks to Jay's actions. Jay also had an affinity for the ladies. Now I must mention here that Jay is an ultra-conservative Christian father of 11 children, who believes that a woman's place is uneducated, barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen. That being said, several female receptionists came and went over the years, with only Ruth sticking around because she needed the money and begrudgingly accepted the regular sexual harassment. When he wasn't behaving inappropriately with every lady that walked in the door, he was behaving inappropriately with every other employee. Want to leave early on a slow day? Wrestle the biggest guy in the shop for it. Jay was big on wrestling. I suspect he may also have been wrestling with his daughters, but couldn't prove it. The guy was a real creep. Big guy isn't in that day. Buy him a pizza. Trying to have lunch? Expect Jay to throw food at you. Want to schedule a vacation? Tough. He'll let you know the week before if you can take it. He was a complete child, and I put up with him for 6 long years because I couldn't let him win. The setting: it was the summer of 2012, and Ruth and I had had enough. Jay was completely out of control as usual, now telling me, a Latino, that if Obama won re-election, that he would make my work-life hell come November. Ruth was going through a divorce, and he was trying to move in on her. For the record, Ruth hated Jay's guts. It was time to hit him where it hurt. Ruth was ready to drop a lawsuit for sexual harassment on Jay and 123 Tire, and I was ready to drop one for constructive discharge. Now, suing an employer doesn't exactly look good on one's CV, but we were both at wit's end. The revenge. Ruth and I decided one evening that Jay's ultra-conservative values must be shared by his wife and family. As he was always working, his wife must be the one who goes to the mailbox every day. I created a throwaway email and got him a Bill Me Later subscription to Hustler magazine, and Playboy, and Penthouse. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and he comes in looking like death warmed over. Turns out Mrs. J didn't appreciate his new taste in reading material, and he's now living in a motel the next town over. Now, he's not saying that his wife kicked him out, he's far too much of a narcissist for that. But I could put 2 and 2 together. He's decided that he's done with his wife and 11 children, and that he's going to start a new life with Ruth. After all, her divorce is going to be finalized at the end of the week. It was at this point that Lou's sister, co-owner of 123 Tire and not a big fan of Jay, Liz, overheard him talking to Ruth in a less than business-appropriate manner. Liz later took Ruth aside and got the straight boop on what's been happening for the last several years, and that was that. The next morning, Lou called Jay to his office, and was far kinder than I would have been to Jay. Jay was to lose his title of GM, and go to work in another 123 Tire location an hour away until the end of the year. Beginning 2013, Jay would need to find other employment. Jay was also not to contact the location that he had overseen and worked in for years. Also, the location that Jay was relocated to added an hour to his already hour-long commute. I suspect that Lou also encouraged Jay to reconcile with his wife, which Jay did. Epilogue. Jay ended his employment with 123 Tire in January of 2013, and never suspected any involvement from me. In fact, to this day he stays in occasional contact with me. He went to work for another tire store, this one a corporate chain, as a store manager. Put his house on the market, bought a new one closer to his new employer and everything. A year later he was fired after bringing a 7-figure lawsuit on them. They settled out of court and he moved back to the house he was in before, as it hadn't sold. Jay's next job was 5 minutes from his home, and his new boss was the guy that Jay had gotten fired back in 2004. That one lasted a couple of years until Jay gave up on finding employment in the area and moved himself and the whole family to the Midwest sometime around 2016. Now, in the Midwest, Jay has been unable to keep a job in the car business for more than a year, and as soon as each of his kids turns 18, they seem to move right back to the area they grew up in. His New England home sold in 2019 for less than he bought it for. Ruth still works for 123 Hire and is very happy there now. The icing on the cake. In early 2021, I finally left my job at 123 Tire, sold my house, and became a full-time RVer. I have seen 47 U.S. states, including the Midwestern state and town that Jay now resides in. I looked him up when I got there, and he came to see me after he got out of work in my new RV. He said, "Boy, you must really think something of me to look me up and want to see me all the way out here." If only he knew the half of it. 2. Background. My late mother and my dad met when she was a nurse and he was a medical student in the late 60s. They got married in 1973. I was born later that year. My mom's family always despised my dad, but not his money, because he wasn't Zulu and couldn't speak the language. My mom stayed home and raised my siblings and I. What they didn't know was that my parents had an agreement that she would stay home and raise us, but was studying. She ended up being an amazing student, and my dad only paid for her first year of her degree, and she has scholarships the rest of her academic career, all the way to her PhD. She sadly died 6 months before defending her thesis. When my brother started school, my mother went back to work as a lecturer, but also started first translating books, then writing books. By the time I was in my mid-teens, she was out earning my dad 4-to-1. We went to private schools, took luxury holidays, wore nice clothes, lived in a big house. She and my dad drove a late-model Mercedes or BMW every 2 years, and went to university, which they paid for in full. She was always sending money back to her family, paying for their education, letting them stay in her rental properties, etc. In my country, there are things called funeral policies, where you pay a nominal amount monthly and insure someone when they pass away. You can claim the funeral benefit to help with the funeral. A lot of these freeloaders had insured my mom and told us about it, and were paying for the benefits with the money she gave them. Ostensibly to help pay for her funeral when she passed away. The story. My mom passed away suddenly and unexpectedly from an asthma attack on Tuesday, 6th of April, at 63, and we duly informed everyone. They, Mom's family, all lived 6 to 12 hours away by car. Strike 1. They call asking for gas money to come to the funeral. Strike 2. They arrive empty-handed and expect to be waited on hand and foot. They also never contributed 1 red cent to her funeral. This is something that is done in my country. Strike 3. I had 2 small babies. My sister was in the UK and struggling to get flights out because it was just after Easter and we wanted to wait until she arrived to set a funeral date and other arrangements. Funeral was set for a Tuesday. They accused us of setting up the date so they couldn't attend because it wasn't a weekend. Funerals usually held on weekends to allow family to arrive, and they needed to take leave. My dad reminded them that we all had to take leave. Strike 4. My aunts ransacked my mom's room, which she had shared with my dad, while we were running around making arrangements and helped themselves to her clothes, shoes, and jewelry. They even stole her wedding rings. Strike 5. My uncles and cousins got drunk on the day of the funeral and got into a fight and fucked each other up, and my grieving dad had to stitch these assholes up. Strike 6. They commented on the cost of her casket and tombstone. Yes, they were pricey, but my mom liked nice things and had put away enough money to pay for it herself. At this point, I was running on no sleep, grieving and trying to pay attention to my babies, so I lost it. I grabbed a handful of coins and threw it at them, screaming that they could have their contribution back. They hadn't made one. Not my best moment. They also commented on why we were using catering instead of cooking at home, as was custom. This was my mother's wish. She always said she wanted a caterer so all her family could attend her funeral instead of tending to the pots. Fuck 'em. Strike 7. They asked for gas money to get back home. The revenge. Now, to claim from the funeral policy, you had to produce a police-certified death certificate. As they were weaseling their slimy ways out, they all, to a man, all 12 of them, aunts, uncles, cousins, asked for copies of the death certificate. They had the program. Ostensibly to get leave from their respective jobs. I gave them photocopies of the death certificate, just not certified. They all claimed to need certified copies for... My dad and I blandly told them that for work they don't need certified copies. Just copies, and we sent them on their way. Fallout. None of those greedy fuckers will ever be able to claim from their policies because they couldn't get certified copies, and they were unable to get original death certificates because we never gave them copies of her ID needed to get an original certificate. Fuck you, you greedy fuckers. Hope you got rich selling her clothes and jewelry. Oh, and the tap of unending money shut down hard. And for those wondering, you can't get a funeral policy on just anyone. You have to have a familial relationship usually. You need to provide their ID number, address, etc. And after death, you need to provide the aforementioned police-certified death certificate and police-certified deceased stamped ID to claim. You would not have access to these, we hope, with a random person. 3. First things first, the backstory. I work at a large hub facility of a well-known shipping company, with the main delivery hub that delivers packages to homes and smaller businesses. The packages come with barcodes on the side, as well as small spot labels that allow someone to see the address and which truck they go on. We used to be given small scanners that would scan the barcodes in order to ensure we didn't put the packages on the wrong trucks, or get a package that didn't belong, as sometimes the labels could be wrong or it could lose its label. The trucks were even fitted with sensors, so if you scan a package and try to walk into a truck where it doesn't belong, the scanner would start to whine. With that set up, now enters our main antagonist in this story. Alan, my former supervisor. Alan is a short, skinny guy with a thin mustache, and this is a micromanager of the highest degree. He always walked up and down the trucks to watch us work, watched us from a distance, or close by with his arms crossed to get us to work faster. Constantly told us to grab all of our packages as they come to us, despite the fact they go around on a moving conveyor belt that literally loops them back if we miss them. Told us to load up our larger packages as soon as we get them, despite the fact it makes it harder to move through the trucks and place other packages on the shelves, and even hopped into some people's trucks to move packages around the right way. His way. I can go on and on about Alan, but today, I'm here to vent about just one of these events, or we could be here all day. So anyways, Alan had me and all the other package handlers for our area in a group texting chat in order to tell us our start times for our next shift, as well as compare our work speeds to each other via our scanning count. I assume to make us feel bad or work harder, but we don't really care. Around that time, the number of packages we miss, loaded onto our trucks as we call it, had increased, and ever since Alan had been adding to his group messages that we needed to scan every package to make sure we are aiming for 0 misloads. Annoying, but nothing too serious. At least I thought. So one day I'm working on a belt as usual, and my scanner suddenly decided to screw up in my ass, as they tend to do if smacked or if the battery comes loose. I go to Alan and ask him if he could help me fix it or give me a new one to use. Instead, he takes it and tells me to keep loading my trucks without the scanner, and just use the labels on the packages. This isn't really allowed, and instead I choose to stack the packages in front of the trucks, so I can scan them once I get a new scanner. Alan eventually comes and tells me to just load them into the trucks normally, and to stop stacking. Frustrating, but I shrug and do it to try to avoid any real conflict. That evening, Alan messages the group, and lists our speeds with me at the bottom, and is once again spouting on that we need to make sure we are scanning our packages before we load them, and even comes to talk to me the next day about my number of misloads. I'm angry, of course, as he is the one to tell me, but at this point, I was still fairly new to the job and didn't feel comfortable arguing with the supervisor. So I just try to continue on with my work with my mental note of always scanning my packages, no matter what, so he can't pull this again, unaware that this will be my malicious compliance later on. Fast forward a few months later, Alan is leaving for real estate and is training one of the package handlers to be his replacement before he leaves. By that time, I am fed up with all the micromanaging and pestering, and can't wait for him to be gone. It's about the final week of his employment that I am working the belt, and once again my scanner frigs up and stops working. I hand it over to Alan once again, and just like before, as if he has never cared about scanning, he tells me to keep loading the trucks. I smile to myself and nod, so I continue, stacking my packages in front of my trucks, waiting for the new scanner to arrive. Not long after, Alan comes back with the trainee at his side. He asks me what I'm doing, and I tell him I'm stacking my packages. Once more, he tells me to keep loading my trucks, and this time I talk back, telling him I'm not loading them without a scanner. I have to admit at this time I was done with Alan and let my anger get the better of me, raising my voice and getting a bit shaky as I have a very hard time dealing with anger, especially after dealing with his shit for so long. The trainee tries to settle the situation and tell me to just keep stacking and they'll get a scanner right away, but is interrupted by Alan telling me once again to load my trucks, this time louder. I flatly respond, no. And thus it goes back and forth like this for nearly half a minute before I eventually tell him to get it to me in writing because I'm not getting fired over this. Remember, we are not supposed to load a package without scanning it, and can indeed get in trouble if they prove we did it intentionally. This seems to get him even more mad, and he eventually tries to pull the head supervisor card. He asks me if I would like him to go get the head supervisor to try and intimidate me, I guess. I wasn't able to chuckle in my anger and just told him to go ahead and get him. Him and the trainee walk off with him storming down the belt. A few minutes later, the trainee comes back with a scanner in hand, apologizing, and telling me to just get back to work. I didn't see Alan for the rest of the day, and if memory serves, the rest of my final week as well. To any supervisors hearing this, please just let us do our freaking jobs. 4. So I used to live on Azores and work as an adventure guide. In my work, we use action cameras to capture our guests in the moment. The Azores island is the adventurer's mecca, its raw nature, waterfalls, etc., and it would be difficult and even dangerous to take pictures and videos while dangling on a rope from a 30-meter-high waterfall during canyoning, for example. It also allows guests to enjoy the activities 100%. Anyways, it was Black Friday and I found a great deal on a kit for water sports that included a case, hand straps, a floating handle, case, etc. from the same manufacturer of the action camera. So I know it's quality stuff. Here is the problem. Azores is a small island in the mid-North Atlantic Ocean. So packages that get sent to this island sometimes take a month or more to deliver, and it doesn't help that the local post carrier is terrible to deal with, and everything is handled manually, so it takes time. So a month goes by, and I finally get a letter in the box saying I have a parcel waiting at the postal office. I grab my bike and make my way down to collect it. I get home and notice half of the stuff I ordered is missing for some reason. I jump on the customer support and ask why they have not delivered everything. They explained that there was a mistake, so I said that it was no worries, he could just send me the missing items and we'll call it a day. He said that this was a kit and that he couldn't just send me the items separately for some reason. So I said okay, then just refund me for the missing items. He then tells me that the other items are worth more separately, so he can't refund for the missing items. He then goes on to explain that in order for him to refund me, I would have to return the package that I already received. And that way I could just reorder it again. However, I pointed out that now the kit sells for 25% more than what I paid for it, so how did he plan to resolve that? He replies and says that he can't give me a coupon, but the best he could do was give me a €10 credit. But this would still mean that I had to pay more for the same kit. At this point I was fuming and frustrated, so I just told him to email me a return label and tell him how terrible this experience had been. I hung up the phone and packaged up everything again, printed the label and went back to the postal office and sent it away. Cue malicious compliance, because I really need these items. I thought I might as well reorder it, just like the guy in customer support said. Even if it cost a bit more this time. But this time I decided I would gamble and order it from Amazon instead. You see, listeners, on my way home from the postal office, I remembered that I had previously ordered other stuff from Amazon a few months prior, and I remembered that I was able to collect a full refund because they wouldn't deliver on the set date, due to me living on a remote island and the local postal service took forever to deliver. I jump on Amazon, find out that the company has an Amazon store. I put all the items I needed and a little extra stuff that I wanted for my camera, and press order. And just as I thought, expected delivery 2 weeks from now. There is literally no way they can deliver in that time. 3 weeks goes by and I hop on Amazon to watch the status of my order. And wouldn't you know, a glorious little button has appeared saying that I'm eligible for a refund, as the package seems to have gone missing. Fast forward 1 week later, I get a knock on my door. It's the delivery man from the postal service and a box with a smile in his hand. I thank him, close the door and rip the parcel open. Everything is there. I received a full refund for €200. A week later I got a full refund for the first delivery that I sent back, plus a credit of €10 to use on their website. So all in all, they lost almost €350 and camera gear worth around €200, instead of refunding me the difference or sending me the missing items. Thanks, I guess. 5. When I started at my new company, we had used all assigned parking spots in the adjacent parking garage, and I was given a spot in a building a couple of blocks away. When I got in early one morning and had to be let in by security as the building was not yet unlocked, I talked with the security guard briefly, and this started a bit of a friendship. After a week or so, he asked why I always came through the front door instead of through the parking garage, and I explained my situation. He ended up giving me one of the extra spots that was assigned to the security staff. I was only allowed to park there Monday to Thursday, as they needed a spot for cleaning crews on Friday. This spot is only about 20 feet from the pedestrian bridge to the building, so it's a pretty nice setup. We also have 2 company visitor spots in the same adjacent lot. However, they are on the top floor, along with the rest of the spots assigned to our company, exposed to the sun, and require walking down 3 flights to get to the pedestrian bridge. We have had a senior engineer visiting from a different office for the last 2 weeks, parking in the visitor spot. On Tuesday, we went to our cars together, and he saw where I was parked. Well, when I got to work yesterday, he was already in my parking spot. I headed up to one of the visitor spots and let him know that he needed to move his vehicle out of my spot, or his car might be towed. We are right downtown and have many people who park in this garage without permission. He told me that it was fine, don't worry about it. It was a company parking spot. and that I could just stay in the visitor's spot. I told him that I really did not think that was a good idea and tried to explain, but he brushed me off. I followed up with an email letting him know that spot was not leased by our company, but that I just had permission to park there until a spot opened in the garage. I parked in my assigned spot in the other parking garage. Boss man does not like non-visitors parking in the visitor's spot, so I was not about to stay there, and didn't worry about it, just like I was told. Well, comes lunchtime. Senior engineer comes storming back into the office. Apparently, a security guard saw the vehicle parked in my spot was not my shitty Civic, but rather a Tesla, and decided to have the vehicle towed. I should note that while we have spots assigned to our company, each vehicle gets assigned its own spot. Occasionally, we will have people park in our assigned spots, and security will call our office to confirm that this is someone we are allowing to park there, or if this is someone parking improperly. So, if it had been a company spot, senior engineer's assumption would have been correct. We got no such call, and security guard does not have my personal number. Apparently, senior engineer called and complained to building management. He explained the situation, and it turns out that security did not have the authority to allow me to park in this spot. Sounds like security guard got chewed out, and I'm really hoping this did not impact his job. I lost my parking in the close garage. Boss man is not upset with me, which is the only good thing about this. Senior engineer was bitching to anyone who would listen. He's such a victim. No idea who had to pay tow fees, but I'm pretty confident that senior engineer did not. I was later able to speak with the security guard on my lunch today. Apparently his boss did not chew him out. I guess that was passed on to senior douchebag to appease him. Yes, security guard was told that he could not give out the spot, but that was it. He was quite surprised when I told him what I had heard. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 179. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, if you could please hit the like button and share the video with friends and family. I greatly appreciate it. Okay, I'll keep the outro short today, no special shout-out, so we'll go right ahead to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: things going away or gone you wish would return. Like zip drives. I mean, I'm sure I've still got some floppy disks somewhere. Don't know what's on them, probably nothing useful. But you don't get them anymore because you don't need them. They don't hold enough data. And if you can find them, there's probably a few manufacturers still make them. They're not going to be very well made. Same thing with cassette tapes or cassette players. You used to get a lot of really good quality ones, not so much nowadays because if they make them, they're cheap and not necessarily cheerful. Let me know what pops into your head. Leave your answer in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. Hopefully there'll be some toe wiggling, we shall see. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.